Hello, welcome back into Talking Into the Void. So I haven't made a video in a while, which I usually make to try to help with my problems with speaking in public and my fears of being known, which isn't too much of a problem for this channel. Because I usually make them about movies because I can talk about those more easily, but I haven't really watched many of those recently because 2022, and 2021 for that matter, a lot of slim pickings as far as movies are concerned to discuss. Now I have watched some on Blu-ray, like I did watch Uncharted later on Blu-ray. I watched No Way Home, but I think I watched that when it came out in 2021. I definitely watched Sonic 2, and I think the last movie I saw in theaters was Top Gun Maverick. But I did recently watch the Blu-ray of the Batman, which got me thinking about comparing the Batmen. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, there are different ways to compare these Batmen, and I'm not going to go granular, like whose gadgets were better, whose this was better, whose that was better, but I'm going to go on broad categories. So the Batmen themselves, their Gotham cities, their villains, their Alfreds if he shows up, the music, because that actually is a little bit of a contention here. I might compare the Batmobiles too, because those are iconic. I would compare sidekicks, but only two of the Batmen ever had sidekicks, and they're the Schumacher Batman movies, so I don't know, considering they're the only ones who had sidekicks, and therefore it was the same Robin and a Batgirl. So because there's nothing to compare them against live action wise, because I'm not doing the West shows, I'm doing movies, not shows, they kind of get another thing. And that guy at the end of the Batman The Dark Knight Rises does not count. Oh, your name is Robin! That's not how that works. That's not how that works. It would have been better if they said, oh, your real name's Richard. That would have been better. Because that would have been Dick Grayson. But no. They had to go that way, and it's just stupid as hell. So, I'm going to go with the aesthetics things first, which are the Gotham cities and the Batmobiles, and then work my way towards the actual character stuff. So, I'll start with Batmobiles, because that is, for me, the least concern, because I'm not very good with cars. So, in last place, the Battinson Batmobile. It looked barely like anything more than a souped-up car, which the Batmobile is supposed to be, but this really looked unremarkable. And they waited most of the film to reveal it, and I'm like, that's it? You wait most of the film to show off the Batmobile, and that's it? And this is a long film to sit through for them to wait to reveal the Batmobile. So, I think I have the right to go, that's it. In next place, I never did like the Tumblr's design. The Batmobile of the Bale films. I never did like that one. At all. Aesthetically, it's just, I know what it was supposed to be. I know how it was originated. I've watched films, obviously. But I just never quite liked this design. So, the Batflex Batmobile, I like only marginally better. Which means, to me, the one I like the best are the Batmobiles from the 90s/80s films, and because those were all suitably cartoony, but not overboard. And of those Batmobiles, the best one for me is Keaton's. I think Clooney's is in last place, because his was extra cartoony. And I think the Kilmer one was okay, and it does deserve a spot in between the two. But then again, it's because I liked the classic, more cartoony look of the Keaton, Kilmer, and Clooney Batmobiles over the other ones. Now on to the different Gotham cities. Aesthetically speaking, again, this is all aesthetics, as in what I prefer to look at. So dark, grim, gritty, dirty, you can barely see it. In last place is the Batflex Gotham. And I'm going to take a moment to explain the villain thing after I finish the Gotham ranking. So Batflex Gotham, no, aesthetically speaking, I didn't like it. It also didn't feel like a full city. It didn't feel like a real city. It just kind of felt barely there. And since I like the cities, I felt more like they were there. That means, and a tie, because I consider those all the same Gotham. The Kilmer, Keaton, Clooney Gothams always felt like sets. They never felt real. Now, they look like something almost straight out of the cartoon, which I can appreciate, but they also felt like they were part of a cartoon, not real. And while they had the right gloomy aesthetic, it's just, aesthetically speaking, I prefer it to look like they actually could be in that place, and it's not a set. So that leaves the Christian Bale Gotham and the Robert Pattinson Gotham. And yes, I know that it could go by the directors, but I have to confess, I don't know the name of the directors for every single one of the films off the top of my head. Like, I can vaguely remember Schumacher as one of them. I can maybe remember that, what's-his-face, Burton did a couple of them. But, I cannot reliably say who did the Batman. I don't want to say the wrong name, so it's easier to go by the lead actor, who I can remember most of the time, versus the director whose name I can almost never remember. So, the Pattinson Gotham City and the Bale Gotham City, those ones I could actually see as real cities because they were filmed on location. Now, this is going to come down to, again, simple aesthetics and preferences, but so, fun fact, I once went across the country for something on a train, and that train path took me through Chicago. So I know what Chicago looks like. And once it was pointed out to me that they filmed a good chunk of the stuff in Chicago for the Pattinson Batman Gotham City, I don't see Gotham, I just see Chicago. And that for me is why the Bale City, which is more of an amalgamated location blending, gets the win. Because while both are real because they filmed on location, the primarily Chicago location filming for the Batman, which I wonder if that contributed to the budget blooming. Anyway, makes me just not see Batman. I just see Chicago. Whereas the different pieces of the Bale Batman, Pittsburgh and London, I forget what other locations they film in, felt like its own independent city, which is what you want when you're making a fictional city in the first place. So for that reason, and I also, no offense to Chicago, but I kind of prefer the amalgamated mixture of London, Pittsburgh, and whoever else they filmed versus almost all Chicago. And I also have a feeling that if I had chosen a filming location that was mostly Chicago for a city that was based on New York, being this close to New York, I'd probably get my butt kicked because I'm in Pennsylvania. So, to prevent myself from getting my butt kicked by New Yorkers, I will definitely give the final nod to the Bale amalgamated Gotham. So, before I talk about music, I am going to mention what villains I'm counting and what ones I'm not. So, the only villains I'm going to be talking about on this list are the ones that appear in solo Batman outings, or Batman faced directly in his outings. So that means Jared Leto's Joker, Doomsday, Darkseid, Steppenwolfe, Lex Luthor. So those guys, even though they did face off against live-action Batmen to a degree, a little bit. Oh, and Deadshot, and I can't remember. Oh, Killer Croc, and Harley Quinn. Since they never are shown to directly face Batman on film, flashbacks do not count. I will not be counting them in this whole lineup. Granted, if I had to quickly give them spots, Deadshot's more of an anti-hero by the end. Margot Robbie does okay as Harley Quinn. Jared Leto's Joker is Jared Leto's Joker. And Darkseid, Doomsday, Steppenwolfe, and all that are more the Justice League / Superman's problems, so they don't go on a Batman villain list. So, now focusing on the scores, compositions. Now, I'm going to say it outright, even though when I looked it up online on who the heck composed it, and saw people, oh, they love this score. No offense to the composer. Because music tastes are subjective just as humor is subjective. I cannot say his name, so I won't be saying it, but the guy who composed for The Batman. I hate that score. I hate it a lot. Because aesthetically speaking, I don't like his choice of motifs. I don't like his choice of theming. I just don't like it. Their constant 2-note theme for Batman got grating after a while. And this is a almost 3 freaking hour movie. You don't want a theme for your hero that gets annoying. And I'm sorry. Some people are like, oh yes, this is a great thing. They can think it's a great thing, but I'm going to think it's annoying as all get out. I also did not care for the constant use of Ave Maria and then Ave Maria in minor. Were those the only 2 songs you could license? Oh wait, those are public domain. Did somebody tell you, okay, you're only being paid by the note? Is that what was going on? Because it feels like they were paying him by the note. Which is why everything was so stripped down and limited. Like, it could have worked a bit, but I just didn't like it. Again, no offense. You can like it. It could be your cup of tea, but that composing style and me do not mix. So I'm sorry for those who like his composing style, because again, music taste is subjective. But I don't like it. I'm sure he's a wonderful composer. He probably deserves all the accolades he gets because composing is hard. I've only ever arranged music. I can't imagine what it'd be like to compose. So, I am not going to criticize his composing. I'm just going to say I didn't like his compositions. I didn't like his scoring. I didn't like any of it. But that's all taste. When it comes to the other Batman movies, it's hard to beat Danny Elfman when it comes to pizzazz. I mean, Hans Zimmer did pretty well with the Dark Knight trilogy's music. But, I don't know, there's something a little bit more exciting about the Elfman music. And it's probably because it's Danny Elfman. So I'm going to have to say I do like the Elfman scores a lot better than the Zimmer scores. I can't remember if they used different scoring for the other 2 Batman films. Don't remember if they kept Danny Elfman's music or if they got someone else. Because if they changed it, it wasn't memorable enough to mention. And when it comes to the other movies, that's, again, part of a larger movie, so I won't be really adding that to the discussion, because unless it's the actual live-action Batman themselves, that's the only reason Batfleck is in this list, because he never got a solo outing, which was kind of stupid. But I digress. I'm not talking about the Charlie Foxtrot, as my sister would say, of Batman v Superman and the waste of a character like Doomsday on a second movie. So, that aside, we're going to move on to the Alfreds, because we actually do have enough Alfreds to compare. Now, despite that, there's only really the Pattinson Alfred, the Batfleck Alfred, the Bale Alfred, and they shared an Alfred through the 4 earlier films. So that means there's only 4 Alfreds. And they're all pretty dang good. Like, they hit it out of the park every single time they cast an Alfred. It's like, it's hard to tell them, not tell them apart, it's hard to pick a favorite, because it depends on the type of Alfred you're going for. And it's just how to choose, because you've got Michael Caine. And you've got I don't know the first one's name, actually. I just always knew him as the guy who played Alfred. I think he's since passed away a long time ago, but I always knew that actor as the guy who played Alfred. And you've got, I think his name's Daniel Irons, who played Scar. Not good with names, if you couldn't tell. But voice of Scar, that was another Alfred. And then you've got, and I can usually remember his name, because he plays Gollum. But he's another Alfred. And they all do a really good job. Like, I did not expect the one from the Pattinson films to do so well, but turns out he's dang good at roles like that, and he should get more of them, because he's pretty dang good. So I guess it just comes down to, I think, preference again, because all the Alfreds are pretty good. I think they all bring their own things to the table. So even though he's the classic one, and he's the first one I saw, I'm going to have to put that Alfred just by a hair in last place. Because compared to the other ones, he's just, I mean, he's memorable, he's great. But I like the other Alfreds a little more, so unfortunately, he's the one I like. I like them all, but he's the one who doesn't have... I have much more fondness for the other ones than him. So yeah, the first live-action Alfred that I ever saw, not counting TV show, he's in last place. So, who goes above him, though? Who gets eliminated next? And it's gonna have to be the Batman v Superman Alfred. As much as I enjoy him and all the sassiness he brings to the table, maybe you'll meet someone nice. Oh, you can dream, Alfred. I like the other two Alfreds remaining a little bit more than him. Now, I never thought it'd be this close, because it used to be Michael Caine was my favorite Alfred, no contest. I mean, I like them all, but... because for me to like your Batman film, you better not screw up Alfred. So, do I like Michael Caine the best still, or has an unexpected contender come out of nowhere? Whose name I normally can say, but like I said, I'm forgetting because I'm not good with names. So, do I like the Christian Bale movie Alfred, or do I like the Robert Pattinson movie Alfred better? And it just comes down to, I've seen more of one than the other. I mean, the one did a pretty good performance to nearly oust an Alfred that I've seen in both Justice League and Batman v Superman out of his original barely second place. But yeah, I'm gonna have to still say that Michael Caine is still my favorite Alfred, just because I liked what he brought to the role. But second place is the Alfred from the Pattinson films. So again, normally I might be able to say his name, but now that I'm trying to think about it, I can't. So I've gone through the Alfreds, I've gone through the Batmobiles and the Gothams and the music. That means I'm now left with two categories. The Batman villains, and again, unless it's a villain from a Batman solo outing, I'm not going to talk about him. Or her. Because there is a her on the list. And the Batmen themselves. And since the Batmen are the heroes, I probably should save them for last. Now it comes to the villain list. The mobsters / that business guy, I think his name was Max Schreck or Max Schenk from Batman Returns. So the two Carmine Falcones, the one mobster from the original Batman movie with Burton, well, starring Keaton. Those guys, I just kind of consider them non-entities overall, because they're not supervillains. And why aren't they supervillains? As Mega Man would say, presentation. So that out of the way, with the supervillains, definitely going to be starting at the bottom. And this might turn into a rant, because my least favorite supervillain is my least favorite by a lot. Like, I really just do not like this villain. It's something to do with the villain's actions in the film, because the villains are supposed to be despicable. They're villains. It's the choices in writing and directing of this version of a character who's not actually a version of a character. He's two characters slammed into one. So, I actually know a decent amount about the comics. I don't read them as much as I should, and I haven't read any of the recent stuff in a while. Last thing I read was Battle for the Cowl, to give you an idea of how long ago I read an actual Batman comic. So, it's been a while. Quite a while. But I do know who the villain Hush is. And I definitely know who the Riddler is, obviously. So, when I saw the mask for the character on the cover of the Batman, so normally I don't buy a movie without watching it, but sometimes I will impulse buy a film. And I saw the mask, and I thought, Hush, but they had the question mark for the Riddler. And I found out because they decided to do an unholy alchemical chimera version of Hush with the Riddler. Now they call it the Riddler, but his motivations, his mask, and his obsession with Bruce Wayne are all Hush. and his desire to mess with Bruce a little bit is all Hush. Some of the other stuff is mostly Hush. The rest of it is Riddler. A more psychotic version of Riddler, but... So, because of this, he is not the Riddler. He is not Hush. To me, he is Hush Riddler. And I do not like the Hush Riddler. I do not like him at all. It's not the actor's fault. Please understand that. The actor did a great job. He did a very good job. Unfortunately, he was given a schizophrenic... Sorry, that was ableist. He was given a character that was being pulled in two directions because it was two characters being pushed into one form. And that just doesn't work. I know they worked together in the comics, but there was a reason they were two separate villains. One, because the Riddler was already established, and two, their methods just would not make for one combined happy character, and I think the result speaks for itself. It's awful. You can like this character. You can love this character. You can think he's the greatest thing ever. Just this is a personal opinion. I despise his character. Not for what he does, just the character's writing, his whole conception, his whole design, his whole thing. I just do not like it. His motivations make no sense. Getting fixated on Bruce Wayne, Hush, that made sense. Because Hush's whole backstory is he tried to murder his parents for their money, and Dr. Wayne had the gall, the absolute gall, to save one of their lives. How dare he save his parent life, huh? So, because Dr. Wayne had the unmitigated gall to save little Tommy Elliott's, I think it was his mother, who survived his assassination attempt on his parents, and then he couldn't get revenge on Thomas Wayne because he died, he fixated on Bruce Wayne instead. I think that's how that went. And he did team up with the Joker during his first appearance, I think. It's been a while. Like I said, the last Batman comic I actually read recently, because I'm more of a Superman fan, was a while ago. So, taking all that stuff and putting it together just made no sense, especially considering little orphan Edward, whatever his actual last name is in this film, is not Enigma. Fixating on Bruce Wayne was stupid. If they kept Bruce Wayne's age at orphaning consistent, and with this film, who knows, he would have been 8. What 8-year-old can keep his father's campaign promise? And by the way, I did not like that fact they had Thomas Wayne running for office. That was stupid. Anyway, so yeah, Bruce Wayne being 8 when his parents died, how could he keep any promise for his parents? Yes, he should have, when he was older, done something for the city instead of brooding, but this film was all about him realizing it's not helping anyone to be a dark, broody black hole of a person. You need to live. That's what the film said. Go out and actually be more than vengeance. Which was a kind of good message, but I digress. But by that point, Hush Riddler would have been out of the system, so it would have been nothing to him. So by the time Bruce Wayne could have done anything with his inheritance, Hush Riddler would have been an adult anyway. So, fixating on Bruce for that is stupid. Maybe if they showed more of an obsession fixation with Bruce the whole film, they could have excused it, but they didn't, because it was freaking stupid. They had 3 hours of runtime practically, and they couldn't set up this character properly. So, yeah. Hush Riddler, he is so far from the next place contender. That's not funny. He has to use a spyglass to see next to last place, because that's how far in contempt I hold this character. Even the Leto Joker, if I was going to put him in this list, would be above him. And that's Leto's Joker. So next to last place is Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. Because I can't take that character seriously. All I see is Arnold Schwarzenegger in blue face paint. That was a really bad casting choice. Of course, we can say that whole film was bad casting. Well, Uma Thurman was kind of okay as Poison Ivy, but she didn't pull off Dr. Isley very well. And speaking of, Poison Ivy / Bane. Now, I've noticed that Bane doesn't actually stand on his own in these films. He's kind of always a combo villain with someone else. But so in this case, the Poison Ivy Bane combination from the same movie as Mr. Freeze is also there, because I, again, can't take it seriously very well. And Poison Ivy, if she were pulled off correctly in live action, would probably prove pretty good. Too bad it hasn't happened yet. But since her Bane was nothing more than her muscle, he doesn't get to be on his own. And I'll do it for other combo villains too. Speaking of, tied in the next placement are a duo and a third act villain. Third act villains to me are kind of, shall we say, an issue. Because they don't have enough time to actually build up their presence, and they kind of feel like, why? Or what? Though in this case, this one's a what moment. So, tying with the third from the back. Well, see, back, next from the back, second from the back. Yeah, third from the back is the Two-Face from Dark Knight. Sorry, Dark Knight Rises went after it. So Dark Knight's Two-Face is tied there. Because he kind of felt like a what? Like, he should have probably been saved for another installment. Just saying. Throwing him in at the third act was just kind of a bit too much, looking back. At the time, I thought it was cool because I was watching it at the time. But looking back now on how they did handle the Two-Face thing, it's just, I knew they were building up to him becoming Two-Face, but just kind of wish that they had decided to not make him a third act appearance villain. Because he just didn't have enough time to be a villain and be menacing. Of course, also tied with this Two-Face is Two-Face and Riddler. You know, an actual, real Riddler, not a Hush Riddler. From the Val Kilmer Batman film. Now, those two are put on this place because, again, I actually just couldn't take them seriously. I did enjoy Jim Carrey's performance as Riddler. You know, a proper, actual, bat-crap, crazy Riddler and not Hush Riddler. His scheme didn't make much sense either, but he was played more cartoony, so his scheme didn't have to make sense. And it was Jim Carrey. He's definitely always better than a Hush Riddler any day. And the Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face is kind of there. Like, honestly, that's why I have him basically lumped in with Jim Carrey Riddler, because he's just kind of there. He does not have his own role, really. So those guys are third from the back. Right above them, I'd have to place Talia al Ghul and her Bane. And once again, he's not a standalone villain, unfortunately for him, because he's basically Talia's mask. Now, he's actually the first one that's kind of a threat, and narratively has weight to his arc in the movies. Whereas the other people, well, I will say that the dent I put below him does have narrative weight to a degree. But as far as panache and actual presence, even though Bane was basically Talia's mask, I think it still puts him ahead of Harvey Dent. Even though Harvey Dent's turn was a little more of an emotional knife twist. Talia's down here, though, because her plan was convoluted. And her impact was just kind of the Batman love interest that wasn't Catwoman for that film. And it just did not work. If you're going to destroy a city, just do it. Don't do this whole prolonged social warfare thing that they pulled. It's just kind of dumb and convoluted. Speaking of dumb and convoluted, in the place above her is her father. The Liam Neeson, is it Raz or Raish? I can never say it correctly. So I'll say Ducard, because I can't actually say the Al Ghul patriarch's first name properly. Because that's not a language I speak. So I don't want to actually butcher his name. Now, the movie calls him Ra's al Ghul, but I don't think that's actually how it's supposed to be said. So I'll just call him Ducard. Because, honestly, that might have been better if he'd just been Ducard. And he had much more narrative weight to the film, and much more of a connection to Bruce in the film. He just felt like a better worked into the plot villain to the film. His plot, however, was also kind of stupid. Convoluted, crazy, nutso. why. And tied with him for convoluted crazy nutso is Penguin. Now, both these characters I put on the same rank because I think they're both actually equally threatening, because Ian DeVito's Penguin looks a bit goofy. He has proven to be a bit more monstrous than even his appearance would suggest. But his plan is equally batcrap crazy, but then he's a cartoonish villain versus someone in the real world trying to take the long, crazy way to do things. Which is kind of funny, because even though I normally would lump these two together, I'm actually going to put Scarecrow above Liam Neeson's character. Because Scarecrow, his plan was kind of simple, to a degree. He just wanted to make everybody go nutso from fear. Because that's where he got his jollies, I think. And he did his plan. Well, he got his plan to be put in motion. Even if he was a minion. His plans actually made a little more sense because he was already cuckoo for Goof Puffs, even before he got dosed by his own fear toxin in the films, which seems to imply that it made him nuts. But to run around with a Scarecrow mask and fear toxin in the first place, you're already nuts. I also think that Arkham Asylum psychologists have to fail their psychic exam to get hired, considering how many go nutso or villain. Just saying. I think it's the only mental hospital where you have to basically fail your psyche eval to get hired. So, I am actually ranking Scarecrow a little bit higher than even Bane, because Bane was just a mouthpiece. Scarecrow actually did try his own villainy. Which I think leaves me with just the two Jokers at this point. So, which Joker do I prefer? The Jack Nicholson Joker or the Heath Ledger Joker? And this is actually a little bit tougher because this once again comes down to some personal preference choices and also character choices. Now, Jack Nicholson brought a cynicism and a hard edge, and he was a Joker that actually did feel threatening. His cartoony plots actually kind of clashed with how Nicholson portrayed his Joker a little bit. Like, he could still do the crazy stuff. But he was batcrap crazy too. But a cynical edge that Nicholson was good at almost felt out of place as an acting choice. But then there's Heath Ledger's Joker, and when I first heard they were casting him as the Joker, I was like, why? Because I'd only ever seen him as heartthrob roles. But when he did his performance, I was like, wow, it's great. And his Joker performance actually, as I reflect on it as years pass, is more based in the comic Joker, even though the world he was based in was less cartoony. Because at that one point where the guy was going to out Batman, Joker was going to give money for people to kill that guy. Because only he gets to mess with Batman, which is a very comic book Joker mentality. Like, that is so very comic book Joker. Only he messes with Batman. He also seemed to want to push Batman's boundaries a lot more than the Nicholson Joker, where they just had him be the guy who killed Batman's parents instead of just random unlucky happenstance. So, with all that in mind, I mean, the ideal Joker would be the cartoonish plots of Nicholson Joker, but the characterization of the Ledger Joker. But since I'm judging characters, I'm gonna have to go with Ledger's Joker edging out Nicholson's by a hair, just because he does more consistently in characterization stuff, acts that are more the comic book Joker. Just, he was on a more grounded in reality film series, so no crazy comic book plots. Which leads me to the Batman themselves, but I'm going to take a quick side tangent because there's only 3 of them, so therefore I didn't want to actually do comparisons, but I guess because there are 3 of them I can. Quick rundown of the Catwomen. I'm not counting the Halle Berry Catwoman because that was not Selena Kyle. So if I had to go with the 3 Selena Kyles, they all did the role pretty well, and they all took their own interpretations on it. That's what makes this hard. Like, the Michelle Pfeiffer one was almost not so. And honestly, as I compare it with the other ones now, hers is, I think, the least compelling Catwoman. So, I mean, I like them all, it's just, if I had to go character-wise, the least compelling one is Michelle Pfeiffer. Both Zoe Kravitz and Anne Hathaway did a pretty good job of making their Selenas both reasonable and likable. I hate the Zoe Kravitz Catwoman costume. I do not like it at all. But I have to say, overall, I like Zoe Kravitz's performance. But the Anne Hathaway Selena had a bit more mystery to her. Like, we knew that she was a cat burglar, black burglar. We knew she wanted to go somewhere for some reason. But unlike the Zoe Kravitz one, whose whole story arc was, I think, a bit inconsistent, really. Like, I could tell she was that Falcone's daughter just from their interaction, because decent at character reading. And that felt more like a father checking in on daughter thing than ex-lovers thing. But, yeah, if I had to just... I mean, Zoe Kravitz did an amazing job, but I think the way they wrote her Selena was just almost too inconsistent at times. I mean, Selena will kill. That's one of those things that has always been a Selena thing. But I think I just liked Anne Hathaway's just a slight bit more... It's the costume. Honestly, they both acted pretty well. It's the costumes that kind of pushed Anne Hathaway over the top. I know I was saying hers was more mysterious, but honestly, her characterization could be a little off sometimes too, but the Zoe Kravitz Catwoman costume, I just... Yeah, that actually is why the Anne Hathaway one wins. So, with the Catwoman tangent out of the way, time to rank the live-action Batmen from films. Adam West is off in his own corner. He does not count for anything in this discussion, except for acknowledging that he is a live-action Batman. And that's all we'll be doing with the Adam West Batman. Acknowledging him and putting him off to the side because he wasn't in the film. Each of the Batmen brought something to the table, but if I had to put one on the bottom, it's Clooney. Sorry. I mean, I've seen Clooney and stuff from his prime. I finally saw reruns of ER in the last couple of years. And honestly, Clooney can act. And that was about time they put him in that role. Was from whenever he was at the height of his fame and from ER and stuff. So Clooney, he was a pretty good actor. It's just by the time he starred as Batman in the last Batman film till Batman Begins, he was a star and he knew it. So he wasn't playing Bruce Wayne, he was George Clooney playing Bruce Wayne, which made for not a very good Bruce. And he could have probably done a good job if he hadn't been at the height of his career at that time. When it comes to the other Batman, Batfleck is actually in the next place. His Batman voice, I don't like. His overall not sticking to the no guns thing, I don't like. That is a thing with Batman. And the fact he does so much collateral damage, I don't like. He's a very not very Batman-y Batman. When it comes to Batman's one rule, which is no killing. Like, he almost feels like he's a post-Jason Batman who actually broke his own rule, which I think Jason did multiverse hopping and found out about that and didn't like it. So, that is why he's next to last place. Comes to third from last place. Well, if I had to compare them on characterization-wise, Bale has to go here. Because Christian Bale, while he did a decent job, there's something about his Batman that didn't ever sit well with me. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as other Batman. And Bale lost his spot because above Christian Bale is the Pattinson. Now, this one actually is tied with Val Kilmer's Batman, which used to be my undisputed second place. Sort of. But there are things to the Pattinson that I like, and there are things to the Kilmer Batman that I like. that if you put them together would probably be closer to a better portrayal of Bruce Wayne in the films. The way Pattinson handled crime scene solving seemed more methodical than any of the other ones. Like, he wasn't up to the detective skills of the comic book Batman, but he was a year 2 Batman, so I can excuse some of the clumsiness. But he actually did detective work. Something I didn't see any of the other Batmen do very much of. Which is why Pattinson almost got up to second place on his own. But I just have a soft spot for the Kilmer Batman. And with only one Batman left, and only one spot left, yes, Michael Keaton is in first place. I know, it's kind of an obvious choice for someone my age, because nostalgia goggles, but if I compare him to the other ones, he has enough seriousness as Batman to pull off Batman, but he also has enough charm to pull off Bruce Wayne. There's just something off about the other ones' portrayals of Bruce that didn't work for me. Like with the other ones, you go down the list, their portrayals of the Bruce part of the character just didn't work for me at all. I mean, the Pattinson portrayal of the character, he wasn't really doing Bruce Wayne's life at all, because that was part of the whole thing of learning to, actually live your life and be more than just vengeance thing. So him not really doing Bruce Wayne's life, therefore not really doing a Bruce Wayne, makes kind of perfect sense. But Keaton actually managed to pull off a portrayal of both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and kept the character balanced enough that I just feel there is more there for the two of them. So yeah, so in the end, it should surprise no one that the Keaton films had 2 wins, while everyone else had a mixed bag win. Actually, they had 3. Because they won for the score, they won for the Batmobile, and they won for the Batman. Whereas the Christian Bale films won for villain, and they won for Catwoman because, again, that costume. Zoe Kravitz did a great job acting, but unfortunately she can't act her way past the costume. I don't think any of the other ones... Yeah, the Bales film also won for Gotham. Yeah, they won for Gotham, Alfred, and Catwoman. Scores were Keaton. So when it comes down to which film series ended up being better, the Keaton films and the Bale films are tied, and the Bale films had 3 films to do it. Whereas I don't think any of the other incarnations came close to getting #1 spots. But then again, this is a subjective list. It's not exhaustive because I should have gone down more with tech, but honestly, that required me remembering more tech and having to rewatch all of them, and I could barely stand watching the nearly 3-hour-long The Batman. So I'm not going to sit down and watch. Let's see. It would be like 12 to 16 hours to get through all the other Batman films together. So, it's my list. It's purely subjective, purely opinion. And that's me talking into the void today.